Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya. Om. Salutations to Bhagavan Ramakrishna. We are continuing the life of Gauri Ma, Gaurdasi, Gauri Ananda. As we've seen, she was one day found in a state of samadhi as she was holding on to a branch of a tree and she was softly singing a song she composed herself. And it was evening and she kept standing there, spent the whole night. And only the early next morning did the samadhi break. These are samadhis because of extreme love for God, called bhava samadhis. And as we have seen, her entire life was so focused on the realization of God, and that took her through various types of spiritual disciplines, dangers and ordeals. This focus on God, in realizing God, is the primary stage. The second stage of God realization is to see that same God everywhere. People get a little visions and see a little light, and that's nothing actually. So the first stage, she had completed the first stage, and then the second stage has begun. She has already opened a small center in what is called Barrackpur, and she is having difficulties with funds, of course, because she needs to have funds for those. So she was asked to shift to Calcutta. That's a big metropolis there. And she did, and she was in a rented place. And she went through all these various, as you say, further troubles. Her austerities, so intense, were of a different type till now, because she was, as I say, trying to beat all challenges of heat and cold and hunger and thirst and dangers. Now those challenges were over and a new type of challenges had come in. She had taken herself away from society and the doings of people, and now she had to come in, and she had to now transform people's minds by that spiritual strength that she had accumulated over all these years. Holy Mother says of her, Gaurdasi takes wonderful care of the girls at her ashram. If anyone is ill, she does all her personal services herself. She never had to do these things before, but the Master is making her do them this time, this being her last birth. There it is. And we can see that the last birth does not mean, oh, you've realized one aspect of God. That the last birth you experience the all-pervading aspect of God. That means last birth, that means liberation. So we've seen how she to collect funds, she used to go from door to door. In those days, she started her ashram in 1895. Swamiji had come here in the US in 1893 and he's inquiring, where is Gaurdasi? We want thousands of such mothers. He later crystallized the idea of working for the uplift of women, especially. But before he could even do that, you see, Sri Ramakrishna had made Gauri Ma do that very work. So it was the, as I say, divine plan. So she has started. You see, the lives of women in the late 1800s was terrible. It's not only in India, everywhere. We see pictures only of some of these socialites and elites going around in carriages and this and that. But the rest of the women, they had it really bad. It was all over. The situation for them everywhere, in developed, where undeveloped countries, everywhere. She was now going to work for these women. Because as they say, they are representatives of the Divine Mother. They are the embodiments of Shakti. And if Shakti is dishonored, there is no raising of human consciousness. So Sri Ramakrishna had planned it like this and is making her do it. He's saying, enough of this tapasya, austerities. Now you come and practice. At times she had to beg from door to door for the food because there was no adequate food for the women there, both monastics and students. And she had to do that. And in those days in Calcutta, my God, though the monastic is given the highest prestige, yet there will always be some people who will scorn, who will taunt, who will criticize. And she had to face all these, begging from door to door. So in 1911, the first house was rented, and then everybody was insisting that she should have her own plot of land and own center instead of staying in rented premises. And she took that step because Holy Mother herself had thought, yeah, she should have her own place. And Gauri Ma says, well, if mother is worrying about the ashram, then what need is there for me to worry? So the well-wishers around her were keenly aware that this work needs to expand. And so they came together. So a plot of land was purchased for 12,000 rupees in those days. Oh my God. That was a kind of fortune there. And one day, a nice, genteel lady comes and she had been sent by Holy Mother, saying, if you go and meet her, Gaurdasi, you will have some peace of mind. And they never knew who she was. As she was leaving, saying, how do we write to you? We need to keep in touch. I was saying, okay, you just write to saying her name was Saroj Bala Devi. And she gave an address in Assam. Later found that she was one of the princesses of that particular state, Assam. It's called, and it was Gauripur. It was a princely state in Assam. And she sent a check for 10,000 rupees in those days. And that took care of the initial. But then constructing the buildings, etc., it's a huge, you can say, work. A different type of mind is needed. And fortunately for her, a lot of people knew about her by this time. you can say, news travels quickly, you know. And so principals of Sanskrit colleges, judges and landlords and all these people, they came in touch with her and they were impressed. One time, there was, he still has an organization, Bholananda Giri, a monk. I have stayed in his centers a couple of times. A very great Swami. So he says, don't even think that she's an ordinary, you can say, woman. The intense and difficult spiritual austerities that she has practiced, you cannot understand them while sitting in your home. So there were scientists, lawyers and doctors. They had now slowly were drawn to her. See, what happens is, once you have a mission, and if the mission is noble, people of noble character will be drawn towards you. Even a person like Mahatma Gandhi, whom the whole nation revered, he met her with another very great freedom fighter called Chittaranjan Das. And she was speaking to them in Hindi, Gandhi. And Gandhi was impressed and then saying, Mother, you speak about the Gita. And she said about, she spoke about the work without attachments. And Gandhi was very impressed. A lot of people had come forward to donate money. But when she knew that that money was tainted, she rejected. Though these sums were very high. So he's saying that kind of money, somebody had given, offered 50,000 rupees in those days, a ransom for a king. She says, even if it was 500,000, I would not touch it. This is what happens when you want to establish anything in your life. There has to be a purity of purpose and a struggle. Today we have all our centers all over the world. And we read its history. Every center has gone through immense struggles. The pioneers, they had to go through. It's always the pioneers who struggle. People think that, oh, it's donations come in and people flock and then the center is open. Nothing like that. The pioneers, they undergo extreme hardships. So this center is based on sacrifice, on struggles, on austerities. That is a very firm foundation on which any center can last for a very, very long time. You see some organizations and some centers, they get huge government money or some funds come in and they start with with luxury. And we've always found there has been incessant troubles amongst the members, in the administration, everywhere. So it's better to start poor and, you can say, self-sacrificing. So this is how she built her first ashram. It's in Sham Bazar. See, and we've heard of Sharat Chandra and all these great Sharat Chandra Bose. He was the brother of, you can say, these freedom fighters. So he also, Subhash Chandra Bose, he used to come with his wife and mother also, and he used to help. Also, now, you know that the old, you can say, tendency of going out, caring for nothing, was always there, depending solely on God. Swami Vivekananda used to quote, "Walk alone like a rhinoceros, fearing nothing, caring for nothing, not trembling at noises or voices. Walk alone." So this, she had done this for a very long time. Those tendencies were always also there. When you go out, when you're alone, depending only on God, fearless. So one time, she had gone to Belur Math, and Raja Maharaj had cordially invited her and saying, and he asked the young members, you ask questions. And one of them, they put a question saying, "Mother, we heard that you left home when you were a little girl. Weren't you afraid to travel all by yourself?" Even men get frightened to travel by themselves, forget women. "And without money?" Gauri must say, "My son, all fear is pertaining to the body. I had something with me that no one could harm me." Then she said in a firm way, "By the grace of the Master, I regard lustful persons as worms. Their place is always under my feet." She also taught people how to, especially women, how to be kind of bold and self-reliant. Once a group of women at Balram Bose's house wanted to see how she looked like. They had heard she used to travel as a monk, sometimes dressed up as a man. One time she wanted to show them what she looked like in her itinerant dress. And she came with a staff and the turban, and then the women shrieked because the women were always confined in the women's quarters, And she says, "What's this? Why are you so afraid of a man? When you saw a stranger enter the inner apartments, why didn't you throw something at him instead of screaming? Isn't it possible for 3 women to push out 1 man?" So here she was now slowly emboldening women. It's not only, people say, "Oh, these religious people, they are so nice and soft and sweet and like syrupy, and they'll melt." Oh, that was the old style of religious ideas, which Swami Vivekananda himself knocked on the head. No. He wanted spiritual people to be heroic. You got to be hero first to enter into spiritual life. Yes. All that goody, soft, that melting, that kind of thing was, those days are over. A new type of monastics. And you can see how she was building up these young students and girls under her care in this mold. Not that old, weak style of monasticism. Yeah, you got to dare. And if you don't dare, you don't get God. Simple as that. So she lived her life. She used to go out now and then and come back. And so she worked day and night for these people. Imagine in those days going around in the city begging for food. Begging for food, she used to go and say, it's like Bhavati Bhikshan Dehi. Oh, lady, give me alms. And Narayana Hari, they say Narayana Hari. And as I said, that sometimes she used to get food, sometimes no. She used to get with a kind of a sneer at times. Her pure-mindedness gave her a firm faith in the ideal, about which she was sometimes outspoken and which annoyed people. And these people don't compromise with the small kind. They don't compromise their message. They don't compromise with their life. They don't compromise with what their mission. They are going to. And she did displease people. But knowing that Sri Ramakrishna had earmarked her for this work, and Holy Mother was with her. She pushed on forward. Now, towards the end, like her heart was not only for the human beings, but for animals and birds and everything. And that is what, when you see that one Atman in all beings, that is a very high stage. So she was seeing that one consciousness in everything. So she had begun the spiritual education and also the kind of the regular education of women, and which was extremely necessary in those days. She trained the monastics, and slowly we see her now rolling back her own activities when she knows. She was born in 1857, and in 1936 she had passed away, 1938. In 1936, she had given a radio talk on the All India Radio. We don't know whether there is a recording, because that same radio station had Swami Abhedananda speak about Sri Ramakrishna, and that was recorded. We still have a recording. We don't know whether her voice is recorded or no. That's another line of research. So in that, in Bengali, she spoke, and the following is a free translation. Om, salutations to Sri Ramakrishna. Human beings forget the duty of life due to inertia, tamas, and involvement in petty matters of the world. Being infatuated by Maya, they forget God. Sri Ramakrishna was born in this age to awaken God consciousness in the minds of the people. His centenary celebration reminds mankind of the eternal truth. This eternal truth. And then is a long thing. So an organization succeeds not because it's cleverly run, because there are people of character. And so she was one of the pioneers in the field of education, women's education, which somehow is forgotten in her own country. I mean, we have pioneers in education and so on and so on. But here we have this woman here working as a pioneer. So she was delegating her responsibilities to her juniors, her disciples. Some of them were already Holy Mother's disciples. And she used to visit Jagannath Puri and Navadvip. These are the two places she was always attracted to. At Jagannath Puri, she says, she tells the Lord, maybe this is the last time I'll be coming out here. This was in 1932. She was growing old. And then she had gone to Navadvip, where the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya, whom she loved since she was a child, and because she always carried his picture along. Then she was ill for some time, and her disciples and devotees had taken her to Devgarh, Vaidyanath, where now we have a very big center, the Ramakrishna Mission. So here she was saying that during her illness in 1936, she had a mysterious dream about a fire sacrifice. It's called a yajna. And a yajna, the fire sacrifice, was symbolic of life, every life. And it's also symbolic of the plan of the cosmos. So here you take what you own, what you have, what you best cherish, and offer it. Not the fire represents that old Vedic deity of That is God. So you sacrifice. So in one of the ancient hymns of the Rig Veda, you find that it's called a Purusha Sukta, where God himself sacrificed himself in order to start creation. Yes. It's called a Purusha Sukta. So it's a very sublime hymn. So creation started with that symbolic act of self-sacrifice. God sacrificed himself so that God can create. It's not an easy job, creating. You've got to sacrifice yourself. And that has to be emulated by every life. So every life is based on sacrifice. And if you don't sacrifice, then you know what it is. Whether you sacrifice the ego, whatever, but it has to be based, life is based on sacrifice. So even Arjuna was saying, should we abandon sacrifices? No. Krishna says, no. Sacrifices is the law of life. Swamiji says, it is the law of life. Alas, the earth's best and bravest will have to sacrifice themselves for the good of the many. Let Buddhas arise with thousands, with infinite love and compassion. So this was her life of sacrifice. Oh. So first she was worshipping God in that symbol. We have her carrying around that symbol of the Lord. And then slowly she graduated to worshipping God in images, and then slowly in her own being. And then she was working towards worshipping that same God which is pervading everything. So, and I remember when somebody had, one Swami had passed away, another Swami was saying, oh, that is that last ahuti, that the last offering is you've got to take yourself and offer now to that fire. It's not only your thoughts, words and deeds, now you offer. And so she had slowly, she was very fiery, a person who has lived such a life, very fiery. But towards the end, she had kind of mellowed. And she was about 81 when she passed away. And so that vow that Sri Ramakrishna had told her to kind of perform was slowly getting over through her, of course. You remember that he had taken a pot of water and poured that water on dry earth and said, you need that clay. And she had said, oh, it's so pebbly, so hard. That's what she was doing all her life, kneading that pebbly earth into creating these pots and pans and vessels for God. And so she was there. After all her realizations of very high category, fear, like we said, fear had all left her. Even the fear of death. In fact, I don't know why people get frightened of death. It means that they are frightened of life, of living. Living itself is frightening. So people think, oh, let's escape in death. That also will not do. People, they're living in fear here, and they're then afraid of death. She had crossed over all these kind of things. She had become fearless. So on one Shivratri day in 1938, and she felt the first attraction to Sri Ramakrishna was if you're a holy man, she was telling Balaram, if you're a holy man, was such so great. He'll draw me to him. And she had an experience of a spiritual experience, and she had kind of fainted, and she felt that her heart was being tugged by a string. Somebody was pulling it. They say heartstrings, yeah. So it was being pulled. And then she came to Sri Ramakrishna, whom she saw symbolically, reeling in a long thread. And she was like, oh, you're here. She knew immediately. And she always regarded Sri Ramakrishna as God incarnate and Holy Mother as the Divine Mother incarnate. So towards the end, she felt that tug once again. It's like as if Sri Ramakrishna is now tugging her back, calling her. He had said, unless I pull you, you won't come at the first time. And he had pulled that stubborn disciple. She was very stubborn. Otherwise, you think she would have defied all her social conventions and her family and all the big shots and run away? She was very stubborn. And you have to grit. Again, she felt that tug. And then, so it was the Shivaratri. And that day passed. The next morning, so during the Arati, the disciples were, devotees were there. They were conversing with them about spiritual thought. They tried to ask her about something about administrative things. And they said, no, please leave that aside. And said, don't ask any mundane questions. Talk only about the Master, so thou will get joy and attain blessedness. So neither attachment, nor delusion, nor fear of death could touch Gauri Ma. She was absorbed in the bliss of the self, the Atman. She took her rosary and started doing japa. And she was preparing herself. She had new clothes or fresh clothes, whatever, silk clothes put on. And she was like ready to meet, as like her beloved God. So on 1st March 1938, she handed that image of that Vishnu, which she carried. It's called a Shalagrama Shila, to her next, who kind of succeeded her, Durga Devi. And she asked her, then saying, and during that time, she was indicating that a chariot is coming for her to take her away. Yeah. So, and then as she gave it away, she was, relieved also of all the duties, and she was relieved that her duties are now getting over. And she was cheerful. And then saying that evening she uttered 3 times, Guru Sri Ramakrishna. And then she started repeating her mantra silently. So that is the idea. The last thought dictates where you're going to go. You better start practicing now. The last thought will be that of God. If that is of God, you will go to God. And if it's something else, then sorry, you've got to come back again. So at 8:15 p.m., Gauri Ma passed away. Her body was cremated the next day at the Kashipur cremation house. That small, you can say, place is still there, besides Sri Ramakrishna's Samadhi. So it's not just doing japa. As we have seen, she had attained very high states of consciousness. So she was now in that state of consciousness. And in that stage where you see everything, the whole world appears as a shadow or dream-like. there is no fear, there's only bliss, and the tremendous bliss. And suddenly you find your existence has merged in the universal existence of God. Holy Mother had said this is her last birth. And the last birth is you merged in that consciousness of God. So it's like the river finally merges. So did this great life of Gauri Ma end this way. We hope people can read about her and get inspired by life. I just gave a brief outline of a life. So this is another miracle of Sri Ramakrishna. Like Sri Ramakrishna's miracle, this was Sri Ramakrishna's miracle. How Sri Ramakrishna took a little girl who was devoted to God and made her what she is today. Great in the estimation. Through spiritual eyes, her life was unparalleled. Unparalleled. We have heard of so many women saints of India. The other day I was reading the women saints of India. I never saw her mentioned anywhere. I said, what's this? She should have been there in the first. So this is Ramakrishna's. And in a way, Sri Ramakrishna, we've got to be a little aware of ourselves now. You will find Sri Ramakrishna also tugging at our heart. Once you start acknowledging it, yeah, sometimes it's apparent, sometimes it's subliminal. You can't, but you're drawn. You cannot help it. Once Sri Ramakrishna starts drawing you, nothing can stop. And please don't say, oh, Sri Ramakrishna, take me to nice, clean, beautiful paths. Sorry. He's not going to listen to you. He will do things which are beneficial to the world. He will say, you've got to sacrifice anyway. Your life is supposed to be a sacrifice. So he took on these paths, which even today, I remember going through some of these places and I said, oh my God, look at her. And in those days, there was nothing there in these Himalayan regions. No, you won't know where you're going to get a next meal. Nothing. It's all pitch dark. And the only light that you have is your faith in God. That was what sustained her. That will what sustain all of us. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. As we can see, we all set for tomorrow's worship of the Durga. So it will start with the worship, we'll have songs, and we'll have our Mother's Children Sunday School. We are singing. And then we will have a called flower offering called Pushpanjali. Then we'll have the water of peace, Shanti Chal. And of course, Prasad. So please, you're all welcome. The next series of Friday talks will be on Mantra Yoga. This will be a type of mantra meditation. There will be practical aspects plus some aspects of spiritual life related to what japa is. So I had given a series of talks when I was in Hollywood on mantra yoga. So I think I still have some in my bag, some new ideas. And place them all before you. Okay. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.